Hello, this is my first upload in quite a while, and just making this video to kind of let you know what I've been doing in terms of my degree, and kind of go through what I've actually been doing for my first module of my Masters in Documentary Filmmaking. So our first module is called Craft Skills, and I'm just going to quickly take you through exactly what this is and what this actually means. So the module itself is basically a module to introduce us to the basics of filmmaking specifically for documentary. So interview techniques, camera setups, lighting, audio and all that kind of stuff. So basically to give us the fundamentals so we can go out and be independent filmmakers. So for this Craft Skills module there are actually 6 tasks, and I do have a playlist of that, and I'll put a link down for that in the description. Or you can just go onto my channel and look at my playlists and you'll see University Module 1 Craft Skills, I think it's under. But yeah, feel free to go there and either watch them before this video or after. But yeah, they're there if you'd like to see them in their entirety. So the first task was an interview-based task, which is obviously very important in documentaries, whether they be online or kind of in traditional media like TV. As we all know from documentaries, interviews are usually a very integral part of that and very important. So yeah, we've kind of focused on composition, audio and camera work, as well as kind of how to elicit answers from the subject. So how to relax them and try to get a relatively natural answer rather than something that's too stilted. So we had 3 roles. So the first one was the interviewer / sound recorder, the second role was the camera operator, and the third role was the actual interviewee. And we would cycle around, and basically we were graded on our, firstly on our camera work, and secondly on our sound recording / interviewing. So yeah, we basically worked in that 3 and all got round onto each different station, and we basically were allowed in our building wherever we like to go. So the camera operator chose where to set up the interview. So obviously we did it in 3 different locations, like each for each of our assignments, and yeah, we had the freedom to set up how we wanted. It was a relatively simple task, quite quick. The turnaround on that was about an hour and a half altogether, an hour maybe. And yeah, it's kind of just get the ball rolling. We actually did this in our first class, and it was relatively daunting at first, but it was actually okay. It was good fun to actually get out there, and it didn't go as badly as I thought it would. For task 2, it was a somewhat similar style project, but this time we had to interview somebody outside of class, and this was actually it was called a non-sync portrait. So what that essentially means is, instead of filming the actual person being interviewed, we used an external recorder, so radio mics, and we weren't allowed to show the interviewee. So all of our footage had to basically be B-roll or cutaways to accompany and to complement the interview rather than showing the person. And that was good fun. All of my stuff was handheld as opposed to the tripod work that we did with the first interview. And it was good fun kind of trying to create like B-roll that you see on YouTube, and be a bit more creative with the shots rather than just static shot. But no, it was good fun. Our third task, which was the bulk of our grade, which was actually 40%, was task 3, and that was basically it's kind of like a small documentary essentially. So it had to be structured with a beginning, middle and end, some kind of conflict and some kind of resolution. So it's a lot more reminiscent of what we would actually be hoping to make further down the line in our course, and also especially for our major project at the end, but also for future work. so like kind of feature-length stuff, short docs, mini doc series. It's a lot more in line with that kind of thing, so it's kind of more structured like how you would imagine a documentary. So we basically had to incorporate all the stuff we'd learned so far, so we could have a subject of our choosing, so it could be anybody, it could be a family member, a friend, a partner, and yeah. Task 3 was more of a character-driven piece, so it's about somebody's personal experience, and again, could be anything. So that was good fun. I actually did my recording, the bulk of my interview, in a park, so I had to contend with the wind, obviously the natural lighting, had to work around that, but I actually took a couple of cameras, a radio mic, a couple of external lights. So yeah, it was interesting to set up, and I was actually pretty happy with how it turned out. Task 4 was actually probably my favourite task. It's focusing on pans and tilts using a tripod. And we used the C100 Mark II cinema cameras, which are kind of the low-end Canon cinema cameras. And yeah, basically had about 40 minutes. And we had no like prep time, so it was basically on the fly. You could create a narrative to it, you could just demonstrate the skills, it could be something just a kind of a chronological piece of following somebody from point A to point B. But I decided to do more of kind of a thriller action scene, following my subject, so I had a lot of fun with that, and especially with the actual colour grading afterwards. Yeah, so it was kind of the first time I properly used grading for a piece, and then obviously I went back and graded my parts 1, 2 and 3 and before submission. But yeah, it was a good experience, and my subject worked really well, took instructions amazingly, and yeah, I was happy with the final piece. Task 5 was a time-lapse piece, and we basically had to, we could take a time-lapse of anything we wanted and use some kind of sound effects, and we were actually provided that, the sound effects clips by our lecturer, so there's a limited kind of selection. But I went for kind of a contrast between the hustle and bustle of a city and kind of areas of the city where you can kind of get away from that and it's a bit quieter. So I basically used kind of traffic sounds and more like nature sounds, and so tried to give that some kind of like juxtaposition within a city, and it worked out okay, but that one was actually the one I put the least amount of time into and kind of left it to the end, because I'd had when we were given the task, I went and did the time lapses, and then I kind of left, I knew that would be my is like my last priority really, because it had the footage. It was quite simple to put together, but yeah, it worked out okay. And finally task 6, which we actually used the Osmo Plus gimbal camera, a 3-axis gimbal camera, and yeah, for that it was basically trying to demonstrate different gimbal shots, so orbiting and kind of like tracking and all that kind of stuff, and we had to accompany that with an interview. So the interview track would go over the top, and we could do that all the way through. We could cut away, we could add music, anything we wanted really. And yeah, so the main reason I had fun with that is actually with the post-production, so with the editing. I actually went out purposely with a few shots in mind that I wanted to do, which was primarily some transitions between, say, a tree and a lamppost. So what that essentially means is a kind of a seamless transition between, like, your subject goes behind one thing and comes out the other side in a different location. And if you look at tasks 6, you'll be able to, they're relatively subtle, but you'll be able to see 2 of them, one near the beginning and one at the end. So I want to incorporate more things like that in further projects, so get some practice with it, because it's relatively time consuming. Like firstly you have to actually look up how it's done and then incorporate it, and it's, again, because it's a new thing, it's quite slow going, but obviously with practice you'll get quicker, and it was good to actually go out with shots in mind as opposed to just looking at the footage and seeing what's there. But yeah, I enjoyed all the tasks really. So I guess my takeaway from this module is that it doesn't really matter how simple the tasks seem or how trivial they seem. That it's actually I think I've grown as a filmmaker, and I feel that my projects improved as they went on, and I learned a lot each stage, like each step along the way. And yeah, I was happy with my feedback from the module. I actually ended up with a 76%, which I'm very, very happy with, because I don't come from a film background, so for the first module is focused entirely on kind of filmmaking skills, and to do like pretty well. That's kind of the top within the top grade boundaries, I think. I can't really complain about that. So the feedback was constructive, basically. There was areas that obviously to work on, but yeah, so obviously feedback is very important, and hopefully if you do watch the individual videos, you can leave. I'm happy to hear comments from you, positive or negative, really. Like I'm all ears basically for each of them, or you can leave some feedback in the comments in this video. Either way, I don't really mind. I'm actually hoping to do a lot more videos on a regular basis in this kind of format, and obviously some others as well, some more kind of outside vlogs, reminiscent of my other ones, but hopefully better. A bit more interesting, a bit more creative, hopefully. And yeah, look out for them, they should be coming soon. And I just want to kind of get traction going with this channel. Regular uploads, get into the habit of doing that, kind of get a bit more of a quicker workflow and turnover of videos, so that I can release a few a week, basically. Obviously consistency is kind of king, so. But yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.